Hi, Julie. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes, I can hear you.
I told Dave that usually it's not important if people hear me, but tonight I think it might be.
Yeah, tonight it
is. Okay.
Dave, you have video.
But no audio, right? I had an upgrade.
A haircut looks like.
Oh, well, I'm ready for another one. The mullet's gone.
Probably for the best.
Yep, it's 5:30. You're ready.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the regular City Council meeting of September 28th. And I would now ask the City Clerk to please call the roll.
Tim McLaughlin.
Present.
Darcy Long Curtis.
Present.
Scott Randall.
Present.
Rod Ranyan.
Present.
Linda Miller.
Present.
Mayor Mays.
Present. I would now like to ask Councilor Tim McLaughlin to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please join with me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 4 on the agenda is approval of the agenda. Do I hear a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll move to approve the agenda as presented.
McLaughlin seconds.
It's been moved by Councilor Miller, seconded by Councilor McLaughlin to approve the agenda. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Next, item 5 is audience participation. During this portion of the meeting, anyone may speak on any subject which does not later appear on the agenda. Up to 5 minutes per person will be allowed. If a response by the city is requested, the speaker will be referred to the city manager for further action. The issue may appear on a future meeting agenda for city council consideration. Since we're all here through the courtesy of Zoom, I'm looking at the screen, and if anybody would like to address the council during this part of the meeting, please raise your hand. Okay, I see Mr. Steve Lawrence would like to, he'll go first, and then Ryan Beach. Mr. Lawrence.
I thought you were going to call me Mr. Steve. Good evening, Stephen Lawrence, 2017 View Court, The Dalles. Tonight, I would like to ask the City Council to do two things in fairness to the citizens of the Dalles. First, the Council should re-examine the designation of high density to the area which includes East 10th and 12th between Thompson Street and Richmond. The prediction in population growth relied upon between 1991 and 1996 was grossly exaggerated. The Transportation System Plan at that time predicted that the Dalles population density would grow from 14,776 in 1995 to 18,630 by 2015. In fact, the current population is only now 16,148 as measured in March 2020. The Portland State Population Center, the official body for determining population, projects the Dalles will only be 18,823 by the year 2045. All the planning that was done at that time was 30 years off. In 1992, under Resolution 92-112, a steering committee with the help of the consulting firm of Spencer and Cupper rewrote the comprehensive plan approved January 21, 1993. The key issues were housing, urbanization, and commercial and industrial. At that time, it appeared to show high to medium density residential in that area. There were some important caveats to that designation, however. On page 13, very good and strong land use concepts were spelled out as follows. 1, build on the pattern of concentrating higher residential densities near downtown and neighborhood centers where services and activity are nearby. The bold is in the report. 2, continue the pattern of a transition of residential densities from higher density near the commercial areas to low densities at high elevations along the Gorge Bluff. 3, create new neighborhood centers along 10th and 12th corridor, maybe commercial districts, or be a focus of neighborhood activities such as schools, churches, or other community-based uses. New neighborhood centers can be encouraged at Snipes Street, Weber Road, Thompson Street, and Fremont Street. 4, create new recreational commercial center along the waterfront near the proposed interpretive center interchange. Consider including high-density residential uses which take advantage of waterfront amenities. None of this has happened. The second thing I would hope council would do is begin planning to amend the current zoning ordinance in compliance with the Oregon Administrative Rules for House Bill 2001, approved in July of 2020. The current ordinance was approved under previous rules that no longer apply. When General Ordinance 19-1373 amended Title 10 on October 28, 2019, the background information said the objectives are to provide more housing options to ensure the city's land use code is consistent with statewide housing goals, administrative rules, and statutes. It wrongly implies that removal of neighborhood compatibility was necessary because of House Bill 2001. In fact, no such requirement existed, nor does it exist today. The ordinance substituted neighborhood compatibility with developmental compatibility and couldn't be more confusing. My conversations with a staff representative of the Rules Making Committee for House Bill 2001 led me to believe planners had to know this action was precipitous. In fact, the emphasis of House Bill 2001 and its new rules are that each city over 10,000 and under 25,000, which the Dalles is, must develop a plan that has, 1, completed an assessment of infrastructure throughout, 2, identified where the gaps in infrastructure exist, and 3, developed a plan for solving those gaps. That plan then must be submitted to LCDC for approval. Only then should a housing plan be formulated. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lawrence. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Lawrence?
No questions, but I submit and request that, the items brought up be reviewed by the planning department.
Okay. Anybody else? Thank you very much. Next, Mr. Ryan Beach. Please restrict your comments to 5 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Hi, my name is Ryan Beach, and along with my wife and 2-year-old, we live on 418 West 2nd Place, behind the Chamber of Commerce block from St. Vincent Community Meals and right next to Mill Creek. I'm here tonight to discuss some of the issues we've had with the homeless / St. Vincent's in the area. We purchased this home in 2019 and have witnessed the homeless St. Vincent problem continue to worsen over the last year in our neighborhood. Recently, we engaged our neighbors to document problems they had in the neighborhood. I emailed that to all of you on the council last week, along with a sampling of some recent pictures. Theft, trespassing, fires, littering, fights, yelling, disorderly conduct, harassment, public urination, defecation, illegal parking, decimation of public and private property, and blocking sidewalks are just some of the themes that run through this neighborhood on a constant basis. Mill Creek is a garbage dump from 2nd Street to the 6th Street Bridge. My wife and I alone have called the police over 20 times in the last few months. How is this acceptable? We recognize there's a crisis with the homeless. My wife and I both work in careers that touch on these vulnerable populations. But over the last year, we have seen zero signs from the city that they are working towards solutions on this issue. And the messaging we get from St. Vincent's is they could care less about the problems their organization brings to the neighborhood and are turning a blind eye. St. Vincent's may help with 1/3 of the problem, but they're enabling and contributing to the other 2/3. With that said, Chief Ashmore and Captain Carrico have been fantastic in engaging the neighborhood in conversation, enforcing what they can and being transparent with within their own limitations and dealing with the issues in the neighborhood.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Beach?
Could he send me a copy of what he said he sent you guys? Because I never got that. I need that for the record.
The city clerk is asking for a copy of what you submitted. I can very well do that unless you want to send her for the record, Mr. Beach.
Well, you could send it on to us.
Okay.
Hello?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, did you lose me?
I don't
Hello?
think so. I think I just mentioned that the city clerk is asking for a copy of what you sent the city council.
Okay.
Okay, but you don't have to worry about it. We'll take care of it, okay? Mhm.
Okay. Can I finish my 5 minutes?
Yeah, I think he's still talking.
Yeah. Are you guys having problems with my connection?
We can hear you fine right now. Did you want to say something else?
Okay. Yeah, I was still going when you stopped me.
Oh, I thought you.
I'm going to continue.
Okay, we heard
No, sorry about that.
We heard a long pause. So, I think about 2 minutes had gone by. So go ahead if you'd like to finish your statement.
Yeah, I'll finish. So why does the city value one business, St. Vincent's, over the safety and cleanliness of an entire neighborhood and business district? Any other business attracting these kinds of problems will be run out of town and given citations. This is a safety issue, a sanitation issue, a property value issue, and we are tired of no one taking this seriously. We've seen no improvements over the last year. Does the city not care about the tourists who would visit this neighborhood, especially for the old courthouse? What about the first impression of the city this neighborhood gives? What is happening in this neighborhood is liability for the city. Why is the city silent on this issue? Why does the city seemingly sanction the homeless community to live on the streets of this neighborhood, but not provide basic services like restrooms or garbage cans? You may be working behind the scenes on solutions, but we as a neighborhood have no idea what is going on. We feel like we're on an island fending for ourselves, feel out of the loop and are disgruntled. It is frustrating that St. Vincent's doesn't seem to care or want to understand the impact their organization has on our neighborhood. But equally frustrating that the city doesn't seem to care about the safety and sanitation for the residents and businesses of this neighborhood. You would never know COVID existed if you walked around St. Vincent's property, which is particularly disturbing given the vulnerability of this population. It sometimes takes days for the trash to be picked up around this property, which is not enclosed by any fencing, so the neighborhood gets to enjoy the debris entering the streets. If St. Vincent's is trying to make positive changes, this is unclear to the neighborhood. We realize court rulings make it difficult to work towards solutions. There's likely no perfect solution for this situation. That doesn't mean a city can't afford to make efforts to assure that its tax-paying, law-abiding citizens aren't disproportionately affected from problems fueled by an organization that can't take some amount of responsibility for the issues it brings to a neighborhood. Ignoring these problems is not going to make them go away. It will likely only get worse. Not being transparent with your citizens, even if there are minimal solutions or slow to realize solutions, is just going to increase frustrations. I thank you for your time and hope we can all work on this together to find solutions.
Thank you, Mr. Beach. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Were you going to say something?
We have talked about it a little bit, and we've all read the letters and whatnot. I'm assuming that our city manager and the police and whatnot are taking a look at some of the items from their end of things. I guess I would like to see a report by our next meeting of some things at least we can be involved in. There's probably some things we cannot. I'm not sure what either one of those would be, but it is a serious issue and we need to take a look at it.
For my part, I agree with Councilor Runyon. I've been over there several times and have noticed some of the littering issues and the messes. And I do know that we're working on a shelter, and I do know that St. Vincent's is trying to find a way out of their present location. That doesn't solve your problem for the immediate future, Mr. Beach, but if I'm around here next year, I think we need to lobby the state with every other city, the League of Oregon Cities, to get some aid. Because it's not fair that some of the cities are bearing the brunt of this issue more than others. It should be more of a statewide plan. I saw two hands that went up, but Mr. Schwartz and Mr. Alford, did you raise your hand in response to this issue, or did you have something else that you wanted?
It is in response to this issue, and I'll defer to Mr. Schwartz.
Okay, Mr. Schwartz, you have something on this issue you'd like to say?
Yeah, I'm Philip Schwartz, PK Schwartz, 711 East Scenic Drive. I'm concerned that I have not seen much in the way of official action out of the City Council towards solution of these problems, and these problems plural. It is not just the homeless at St. Vincent de Paul. It's the homeless throughout the city and some of their other problems. And I sent a letter to the city manager about a month ago to take to you, and I've heard nothing back on that. But I do think it's important that the city council get together and form a committee themselves or appoint a committee themselves, something with some official backing to look for and solve some of these problems. The problem is not just around the St. Vincent de Paul area. And incidentally, I'm not purview to the inner workings of St. Vincent de Paul, but they've been very active for a long time in trying to help the homeless in this problem. And I think it's essential that the city formally get behind a solution. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Alford.
Yes, the only thing other I would like to add.
Sir, for the record, could you give us your name and address?
Yes, my name's Alan Alford, 515 and a half Liberty Street, the Dalles. So I too am close to the Vincent de Paul location we're discussing, and I gather we're not referring to St. Vinny's the store, but just the 3rd Street location. As one of 3 new board members, I would take exception that St. Vincent de Paul is not concerned with this issue. And I would pledge that we would like to be a part of whatever solution can be put together to benefit the neighborhood and this population.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else? Marilyn Roth. Is this about the homeless issue, ma'am? You're muted.
Thank you. Yes, it is about the homeless issue. I just want to support, I want to support all of us and how we all engage with solutions for this, knowing that we need the city support, along with the chamber, along with different churches that have stepped forward in the past to help with the warming place. But you know, St. Vinny's and this homeless issue is not going to go away for this winter. And winter is just around the corner. So we have short and long-term issues that need to be addressed. And I'm hoping the council will step forward immediately and try to address the short term, like we're talking a month and a half, that these people are going to be on the street. And I do empathize with the neighbors who have to live around the homeless people who are not picking up, but that's why this is a bigger issue that needs to be supported by the city. So I'm just also, you know, supporting Mr. Schwartz and Mr. Alford, along with St. Vinny's, that this is a group effort and it's not going to be done by just one entity. So I am hoping too that a committee gets put together, and I certainly would be part of that committee if I were chosen.
Thank you. Anybody else on this issue? I see a gentleman raising his hand, but I can't read the name. So go ahead, sir. Your hand is right there.
I'm Dave Lutkins, 707 East 20th Street, the Dalles, and I'm the executive director of St. Vincent de Paul. I wasn't planning on speaking tonight, but I wanted to make a couple of clarifications and changes that we've made. We have worked hard the last couple of months to get people off the street, to get the place cleaned up. I've asked a couple of the homeowners, I don't remember their names right now, and Lisa twice to have a meeting with her and discuss this thing, and I have received no response. We have instituted we don't feed anybody unless the place is cleaned up. I've got tired of doing the cleanup, so we have posted that. And whatever we're talking about, we are trying to improve things. There are no cars around the place anymore. They've all been removed. We counsel people as much as possible to stay off the other side of the street. But we have the same problem. I have the same question that I had from the first day I went to work there over a year ago was, where do we sleep? Where do they sleep? Where do they use the bathroom? And where do they put their stuff? And I have suggested several times that we need a porta potty somewhere If you don't want people defecating in your property or on the street, then for God's sake, supply them a place to use it. We are open 5 days a week from 8:30 to 4:30. And on the weekends with community meal, they open and they can use the bathroom. But outside of that time, there is no place in that area where they are welcome to use the bathroom. So I don't know how to say it any louder, and I'm not going to say any more. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else on this issue?
I'd like to say something.
Councilor Miller?
I'm on the board at the Old St. Peter's Landmark, and this has been an ongoing situation for the landmark. Because behind the building, it's a little secluded, and so it is used as a sleeping area. But we have managed, for the most part, to be able that they know that they're not supposed to be there, and most of the time, they move on when we tell them to. That's the only thing that I can add right now.
Thank you, Counselor. Anybody else? Okay, I'll wrap this. Sean Phillips. You're muted, sir. There you go.
Yeah, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I had to use my phone here. My audio wasn't working. Had some technical difficulty. I'm not sure what Ryan had spoke on or touched base on, if he had touched base on the multiple code violations, but the list is so long. I listed it out here. It's about 2 pages of code violations. And being the owner of 406 West 2nd Place, I own properties all over the Northwest, and my concern is obviously having a property next door to St. Vincent. The issues are ongoing. I hear every year that they're making changes. They're doing, things to try to improve the situation, but it's just not getting better. And I think that's why the neighbors are wanting the city council to step in. The issues are dramatic, and it's safety concerns. I've seen just about everything you can think of from the patrons at the St. Vincent location. And from my understanding, the business location is responsible for its patrons, if I'm not mistaken, I should say. And it's safety concerns, it's trash, it's things getting thrown around, disrespect to the neighborhood. And mostly, I'm a law-abiding citizen, and I try to follow local codes. And I just see a business that's not following local codes. And what's their repercussion is my question for the city council. Is there some sort of repercussion that this business is going to see? Because I don't. It's unfortunate that it's gone on this long.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. The only thing I'd like to say is I have thought about appointing a committee, a blue ribbon committee, if you will. But there are already some efforts being made, and I didn't want to interfere with those efforts, including a committee that's been meeting once a month since before I was mayor. I'm not sure how effective that committee is and what their activities have been lately. I do know they sponsored a homeless get together at the senior center to provide services, but that's been, I think, 2 years in a row. But as far as I'm concerned, if there isn't sufficient progress made in the coming months, I might lean toward at least asking for volunteers to serve on some other alternative committee to get more done with this issue. So with that, we'll move on. Is there anybody that would like to speak to the city council about any other subject that's not on the agenda? Okay, thank you. Item 6 is the city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to introduce to you, for those of you who haven't met in person, Jonathan Cara, who is the attorney assigned to the city from Campbell Phillips. He's replacing Diana McDougall, who, as you know, is on sabbatical. So he's going to start attending our council meetings, so he has an opportunity to meet all of you, work with you, and build some relationships. So welcome to Jonathan tonight. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. I had mentioned to the city council, I think last week, that about 3 years ago, City Attorney Gene Parker had gone through the surplus property process with Hattenhauer, with the property right behind Hattenhauer Oil Distributing, And it kind of languished. They didn't seem too interested in it. Some of you will recall, it's a landlocked parcel and the only access to the property is through Hattenhauer. So they were the only people who would have an interest in the property. And then recently, about 2 weeks ago or 1 week ago, I was contacted by them and they are now interested in going ahead with getting that property deeded over to them. So since it's been about 3 years, I just wanted to kind of get a consensus from the council that you're still fine with moving ahead with that process.
Any issues with that? Anybody?
I support it.
You just heard from the one counselor that was here when it was first. Oh, Councilor McLaughlin. I think the consensus is to full steam ahead.
Thank you. Well, I'm going to turn that over to Jonathan. We'll get him the file and he can work to get all the paperwork completed to get that done. Then I also want to just let you all know, if you don't already, that the Wall Dogs event, which is scheduled for next year, some of the folks will be in town starting, I believe, Wednesday. Main Street has been working with them and they have a portion of the wall in the City Hall parking lot, and they will be doing a teaser mural. So you can walk by and take a peek at that at the end of the week and see how the progress is going on that. We will be closing our parking lot for 3 days to allow them to have room to work in there. So don't try to park in the lot. And then I wanted to report on our economic recovery grant process. So far, we've only had 5 grants that we've awarded. So we're putting the word back out, hoping that people will continue to apply for those funds. And also during the budget time, when we had our report from our SAFE representative, Brianna, she said that the city would get a dividend this year, but she did not know the amount. And so now that's been announced, and our dividend this year will be $24,668. And I believe that concludes my report, Mayor.
Thank you. City Attorney report, Jonathan. First of all, I'd like to welcome you and encourage all council members, if you haven't already, to meet Jonathan. I think he's going to be a great asset for the city. And is there anything you'd like to say, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, council. No report, no official report tonight, other than how tremendously excited I am to be working with you and giving you the best possible legal guidance the city could possibly have. So thank you so much. I look forward to working with you, and please expect a report next month or at the next council meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is City Council reports. We'll start with Councilor Long Curtis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So on September 15th, I attended the Urban Renewal meeting, and we had a presentation by KPFF Consulting Engineers and Greenworks on the First Street Riverfront Connection project, just basically giving us an update on what was going on with that project. We also approved a 180-day extension of the exclusive negotiating agreement with the Dallas Fitness Hub, which is the purchase and redevelopment of what most people call the Tony's building. And we also had a review of the urban renewal projects and activities to date and the status of those projects. Last week and this week, I've been participating with the mayor on the community outreach team. As most of you know, we normally travel to Washington, D.C. twice a year, and this time we are participating via Zoom. So we've been having meetings with both the Oregon and the Washington congressional delegations, and today we had a meeting with the National Association of Counties, and we still have meetings left to go. On September 24th, I attended the Q Life meeting, and we had some good updates there. So the Scenic Drive, Curtis Homes update, we've got the links going in there for high-speed internet. We've also got the Lone Pine project live. And we did have some delays on our fiber there coming out of the city and going up to the county's Annex C due to the fires and some damage from windstorms that put all the contractors behind. Let's see. So, and on September 25th, I participated in a statewide homeless coalition meeting, which is sponsored by the Oregon Housing and Community Services. This time it was primarily on wildfires, but we are focusing on winter shelter, and we'll be having another webinar here soon, so I can learn more about that and what is happening throughout the state. One of the things that we are working on is getting a HUD waiver for some funding that we have available to us, but has some limitations that didn't work very good for the Dalles and Hood River. The problem that I am having, however, is I do not have a location to put these winter shelters. And so I just want to put that out there to the public that we are looking for flat land, whether it's got asphalt on it or if it's dirt, where I can put this community, and it would be very highly structured with rules and regulations, and it's not just I guess, and it connected with services. So I just want to have some reassurance around that, and the city manager and I are putting together some written rules and regulations just to give everybody some assurance on that as well. And I just want to say, I think the community members for coming and talking to the city council, I think it's really important that that you do come and talk to us in your own voice. I think that has a lot of power. I do just want to say that the Housing Solutions Committee that the mayor referenced is specifically focused on housing solutions, and so not the appropriate committee to be dealing with some of the other issues that the neighborhood is experiencing. And to that point, I would just say that it's not one problem. It's not a homelessness problem. It's actually many different problems involving many different individuals and subsets of the population. So I would just encourage us to remember to look at it that way, that it's a bunch of different pieces all into one puzzle, but it's not just one big problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor McLaughlin.
Last Friday, I met with Julie, our city manager, discuss various issues, and I try to do that weekly just to stay in touch. I did attend the urban development meeting on September 15th. In addition to the transfer of title for the Granada was appropriated and was made. Let's see. We're also looking at the possibility of revising or taking a look at the direction and the mission of urban development. And so that's an ongoing process. I met last Friday. That was a Zoom meeting for urban development. The airport was a face-to-face with distancing and following all the appropriate requirements. But we did meet to talk about water rights in the well at Dalles Port and working around some of those issues. And we're following up on that with meetings with our legal department and the FAA. Let's see, development of commercial storage was a topic of discussion where a person would like to sublet or lease a portion of the industrial site. And that's an ongoing discussion. That completes my report for this week.
Thank you. Councilor Randall.
Yes, I also logged into the Urban Renewal Agency meeting, and so I won't recap what's already been discussed. Last week, when we were experiencing all the poor air quality from the smoke, the city of the Dalles had come across some KN95 masks they were handing out. I wasn't able to come to City Hall to pick one up, but they actually gave some to my workplace where we had been in short supply like everywhere else. So they were greatly appreciated, and I'm sure everyone else who was able to receive these masks feels the same.
Thank you.
Right here.
Councilor Runyon.
Just to keep it brief, I was also at that Q-Life meeting with Councilor Long Curtis, and we're well pleased about the Lone Pine project. There's still some hooking up and so forth for residences that are out there as well, but I think that'll be solved in short order, but a very good project. And a couple other things on the phone and dealing with citizen issues this last week, which we've kind of gone through some of those here already tonight. And that's all I've got.
Thank you. Councilor Miller.
I also attended the Urban Renewal Agency meeting on September the 15th, and it was wonderful to be able to give the Granada the deed that they've deserved for all the work they've done to make that building a treasure in our community. On the 17th, I met with a couple of individuals that are running for city council. They just wanted some information about what it's like to be on the council and those kind of issues that are going on. And on the 23rd, I attended a household hazardous waste meeting. And before that, I met with Jim Winterbottom, who is the district manager or the manager for Hood River Garbage, the Dalles Disposal, and Bingen Garbage. And they are going to start for the recycling. There's going to be, customers will be receiving, it's a hard, not a hard, but it's a cardboard, what is this, about a foot by 4 inch, 12 inches by 4 inches. It's what can be recycled, what you can put out on the curb that's good for recycling, that won't be contaminating, so that the commingled waste won't be turned back. And when the drivers are picking up the recycling, there'll be a, we can't haul it. It's a card, it's a form that will show the trash that they can take and the recycling that they, what they can, and there'll be an explanation of why they didn't pick up and take whatever it was that was left. There's more going on with the Household Hazardous Waste and Recycling Committee from the state. The state is going to be issuing what can be done regarding more recycling. That's my report.
Thank you. Councilor Miller, just quickly, I attended the same meetings, and there were Zoom meetings with our representatives in Washington, D.C. that Councilor Lon Curtis alluded to. And I also want to encourage all council members and the public to check out this teaser mural, as the city manager was talking about, on the wall right across the parking lot. It's going to be a real asset to the city and provide people an opportunity to see what's in store 1 year from now when we have the full Wild Dogs event. Councilor McLaughlin, do you have something else?
A quick shout out at the urban development meeting. It was the first contact with Alice Cannon, and I want to let everyone know I'm reassured by her skills, and I just have a vote of confidence in her abilities, and I just wanted to say welcome aboard.
I will second that.
And I will third it. I met with Ms. Cannon as well, and very impressed, and we'll move on from there. Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
I just want to also mention in regards to the Wild Dogs unit, as we're passing out compliments, I want to thank Dawn Hurt for her advice and counsel for the Wild Dogs Committee. She's been great to talk about historic preservation and historic landmark issues, and she's been very helpful. Thank you, Dawn. Okay, item 9 is the consent agenda. Items of a routine and non-controversial nature are placed on the consent agenda to allow the City Council to spend its time and energy on the important items and issues. Any councilor may request an item be pulled from the consent agenda and be considered separately. Items pulled from the consent agenda will be placed on the agenda at the end of the action items section. Tonight we have 4 items on the consent agenda: the minutes of the August 24th special City Council meeting, the minutes of the August 31st special City Council meeting, the minutes of the September 14th regular City Council meeting, and also a resolution for the abatement of junk and hazardous vegetation on a property that lies within the city boundaries. Do I hear a motion to adopt the consent agenda, approve the consent agenda?
I'll move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I second.
It's been moved by Councilor Miller and seconded by Councilor Randall to approve the consent agenda. Is there any discussion?
I just have a quick question. Is the owner present in the abatement in this issue, which would be on, where's the property? 402 West 2nd Street. Are they here? Okay, that answers my question. Thank you.
Okay. Is there a motion to accept or to approve the, oh, it's already been moved and seconded. Okay. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please say aye.
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 Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. We now move to item 10A, acceptance of the Northern Wasco County Parks and Recreation District Master Plan. We have with us tonight a special guest, Scott Baker, who is the Park District Executive Director. Mr. Baker, the floor is yours.
Okay, well, thank you so much for having me, and I'm happy to come back with a completed plan. I did, Julie, you got something to say?
Sorry, this is part of our public hearings, okay. These next two items, Mr. Mayor, so it would be appropriate that you reviewed the script with the audience before you have Scott speak.
Okay, I thought that was item B, but you're saying it's right now?
Yeah, the whole item A and B are all under the public hearings portion.
Okay, now is the time for a public hearing regarding the acceptance of the Northern Wasco County Parks and Recreation District Master Plan and amendments to the City of the Dalles Comprehensive Land Use Plan. This is a legislative hearing to hear testimony regarding the proposed master plan and amendments to the Comprehensive Land Use Plan. I will open the public hearing and ask for a staff report. Following the staff report, I will call for testimony for support of the issue, followed by testimony in opposition of the issue. At the conclusion of the testimony, the public hearing will be closed and the matter turned over to the City Council for deliberation and a decision. So I am opening the public hearing, and is there a staff report or do we go right to Mr. Baker? Oh, there is a staff report. Ms. Hurt.
Yes. Thank you, Honorable Mayor and councilors. So this is kind of a two-part process, and what we're bringing to you today is the public hearing to consider General Ordinance 20-1382. And basically what that will be doing is amending our comprehensive plan goal, policy 10, for recreational needs of a comprehensive land use plan, as well as adopting the Northern Wasco County Parks and Recs master plan as a background document in volume 3 of the Dalles Comp Plan. The proposed comprehensive plan, as stated, updates our goal 8, policy 10, and Scott is going to be presenting the adopted Parks and Recreation master plan that the board approved back in April 2019. It's actually the master plan was the district's first adopted comprehensive system plan. As you stated, this application is legislative and it's required to follow our ordinance for legislative actions. And I provided you some narrative as to what the text changes would be for our comprehensive plan. As of the date of writing this staff report, we have not received any comments from the public. And on February 20th and July 2nd, 2020, the Dalles Planning Commission conducted public hearings upon these proposed amendments and voted to adopt resolution 589-20, recommending to City Council to approve the comprehensive plan amendment number 46-20. There are no budget implications, and staff's recommending that we move to adopt General Ordinance 20-1382, amending policy 10 of goal 8, as well as acknowledging Northern Wasco County Parks and Recs plan, Recreation Master Plan as a background document in volume 3. And Scott will go ahead and present his portion. And then if you have any questions, I mean, you can ask now or you can ask later.
Go ahead, Mr. Baker.
Great. And so mostly I want to just be available to answer questions if there are any. We brought the plan in draft form to City Council previously. I have answered some questions from individual councilors, and it's as part of that draft process. We worked hand in hand with the City Planning Department throughout the development of this plan to make sure that it was adoptable. And so we took guidance from community development to guide the development of this plan to something that will really work. what Don was saying is that y'all's comprehensive city plan refers to a park district master plan that until now did not exist. And so there was a little bit of hole in planning there. And so we developed our first master plan. I think it's turned out great. It's 109 pages long, which I'm going to read to you now. And but I do have, I do have a couple of slides just to kind of hit the highlights. I tried screen sharing once at Urban Renewal and I didn't have the bandwidth, but I'm going to try here with a PDF if that's okay. Does it work for me to share the screen? Can I go for that?
You should.
All right, here we go. Let's see. And so what we have is a little master plan here. It says I'm screen sharing. So we're required to have goals, of course. I'm not going to read them all to you, but they're really, one is people don't really understand the role of the park district in the community. We commonly get calls, or the city gets calls thinking that they're city parks and vice versa. And so we want to create more of an identity as a park district. We want to focus on connecting our parks so that people can travel to them safely, as well as that they're equally distributed throughout our community. We need to look at innovative ways to do funding, focus on maintenance and operations. One of the things that we heard loud and clear throughout our public outreach process was a desire for people to have us take better care of the parks that we already have before we go and build new parks. Because the funds are limited, we really need to focus on sustainability and making parks that are going to last for a long time and be low maintenance. And we also see a role for the park district in building community resiliency. And you know, an example I use for that is our adult softball program, where we have people from many walks of life come together on the field and maybe meet their neighbors in a way that they wouldn't meet them have any other opportunity to meet them. And we feel that that's going to build our community stronger. Youth programs is another way to do that. And so and we're going to focus on doing that. We have a goal of a distributed park system. And one of the things that we wanted to get out of this planning process was not just a folder that sat on a shelf and never got used. We engaged our landscape architects to really dive in with community outreach, listen to what folks wanted to see as the park system developed, and then find a home for those amenities in our current park system, going back to that goal of making the parks that we have now better, rather than focusing on land acquisition and adding parks at this time, although that will be a goal for the future. And so I won't go through each one, but what we did was we created park plans that took the amenities that people wanted to see in their parks, found home for them in our current land holdings, and really will make a beautiful and robust park system. There is a pretty big price tag. People dreamt big when they met with us at the farmer's market and daddy-daughter dance and told us what they wanted in their parks, to the tune of about $41 million when it's all said and done. But we're gonna focus on those high priority projects first, and with some helps and different funding strategies, I believe that it is actually very achievable, especially the high level goals. Are there any questions?
Councilor Miller.
I noticed that there isn't anything here for Cirrhosis Park, so I'm assuming that it is perfect the way it is. I don't think so. But it is part of, and it's probably one of the most used parks in the system.
Well, it is. And so, no, we didn't, we weren't able to engage the landscape architects for all 200 acres that we manage. And so Cirrhosis already has its own plan that's incorporated as part of that, and it's in the appendix, but we don't have, I don't have like fancy drawings for that one. It's more narrative, which is not as fun to share on the screen. But we are having a plan. There is a plan for Cirrhosis, and as we approach its 100th year anniversary, we're making great strides in making Cirrhosis as beautiful as it can be, including the help of the City of the Dalles Beautification Committee, as well as the Lions Club. Park District have all partnered on getting the fountain going again, doing paver projects. We have BART chip, we have all new irrigation system in the Rose Garden. which it has not had since the early 2000s, completely working. And so there's a laundry list of improvements that we've made. Of course, the pine bark beetle and black scale is devastating the ponderosa pines, but we're managing that as best as we are able.
I also noticed in the reading through Dawn's senior planner comments about park in every area of town, and or it's parks because we're using Parks and Recreation. But so I'm assuming that you were using school district property for the west side, and possibly school district property for Thompson Park as being part of the overall system?
Correct. So, you know, we recognize that the Dalles is long and skinny, and we are too small to do it all alone. And so part of our success is going to come from partnerships, and the school district is key in that. And we've met with the school district, and schools can serve a park function outside of school hours if they're built with that goal in mind. And the park district can help with that. We can, for instance, buy playground equipment with our system development charges and place it on school property through partnership agreements. And I think that we're going to find a lot of success that way. And unfortunately, we were having those at a time when the school district was going through a lot of transition. And it was their feeling that they needed to get through that transition time as they were also working on their long range facility planning. I think it's going to happen. And I think that we're going to find some cooperation there, and we're going to make some successful partnerships happen because the distribution is there, and the school district would like our help.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Baker?
Comments?
Why don't we, why don't we do that? We'll take comments or questions actually from the, hold your comments until after the public hearing. But if you have questions.
No questions.
No questions. Anybody? Okay, it's that point in the public hearing for us to take testimony. And first we'll ask for testimony from those that would like to testify in support of the Park District Master Plan. Would anybody like to testify in support of the master plan? I don't see anyone. Next, I would like to ask if anyone would like to testify in opposition to the master plan. Anybody in opposition? I don't see any testimony there either. Last call. Okay, with that, I'm closing the public hearing. And I'm now going to turn to Councilor McLaughlin and ask him if you'd like to comment.
Just like to note two things. In the Thompson Park, 6 pickleball courts. And at the Riverfront Park, RV park. Thank you for including that. That was my comment.
Okay, anybody else like to comment?
I appreciate this, Rod Runyon. I appreciate Linda's comments about cirrhosis. It was a glaring omission that seemed to be. Is it appropriate now, Mr. Mayor, for the Parks and Rec Director to give us an update on what's happening with the trees as they are chopped down? I'm getting calls if people are looking for firewood. Are they selling firewood? Are they giving it away? What's the plan there? We've got a lot of lumberjacks in the area.
Mr. Baker, can you comment on that? You're muted, sir.
Yeah, I was getting there. Yes, I can. So, you know, it's a simple plan. We've walked the property with ODF and other arborists, and you know, 3 years ago and continually, we've been trying to get ahead of the pine bark beetle, cutting out trees as if they were cancerous. Over 70 last year, many the year before that, and it's just they've gotten ahead of us, as well as the trees were already weakened by black scale, and the majority, most if not all, the ponderosas are dead and dying, and will come out of cirrhosis, and will happen this fall. There's hope that there's about 20 identified trees that we hope to save. And that's a tiny fraction of what's up there. So our plan is now to remove the dead and dying trees so that we're not a vector spreading the pine bark beetle throughout the rest of the Dalles, trying to get a hold of it. We are, unfortunately, if you wanted to plant a grove of trees specifically designed for pine bark beetle habitat, it would look an awful lot like cirrhosis. So we're gonna take those trees out. We're gonna assess the irrigation system when we're done. Large parts of that irrigation system is over 60 years old, and it has not as yet survived when the trees fall, the reverberations, the steel tracked equipment has destroyed the irrigation in areas that we've previously cut. So we're going to need to assess the irrigation system when the trees have been removed, see what we're dealing with, make a plan to repair that. It will likely be hundreds of thousands of dollars. That might not be something that the park district is able to do all in 1 year, but we will even use above ground irrigation. Our goal is to have green grass there this spring and let the oaks grow. And then once we get the irrigation set, then we will begin a replanting effort. And that will be guided with the help of people who do this for a living. And we will be reaching out to the community for people to donate trees, which we will need to protect from disc golfers, but we'll have a robust planting plan that's focused on diversity. I think that what's made us so vulnerable is that we only have a couple of species in that entire 35-acre park. And we know better now. And so we'll have an opportunity to plant trees that future generations will enjoy. But if you look at the area between I encourage you to go to the irrigated area and you look out from the shelter, the Lion Shelter, towards the community college and up the hill, you'll see an area that looked a lot like the northwest corner. And now here, 2 years later, with working irrigation and the pines removed, it's quite beautiful. And I think that we are going to have a beautiful park. And, you know, I wish there was a magic wand, and there just isn't.
Thank you.
The other part of my question was, is the timber, is that part of the contract with the company that's felling the trees, or is that something you can recoup some funds on?
Yeah. So thank you. So the logs themselves are just cover the felling, loading, and trucking to SDS. So the park district isn't able to make any money off that. We actually were waiting for the price to go north of $400 per 1,000 board feet for this project to even happen. SDS is giving us $425, so we're just barely there. But all the cleanup is borne, the cost of that is borne on the park district. Once the large logs are removed, what we're doing now is we're taking the smaller pieces, the larger limbs, and we're piling them. And those will either go to the community wood program, or if that fails, then we will make it available to the public.
Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Any
Sure.
other questions or comments? Okay, I trust that the staff is asking for us to, adopt the amendments to the city land use plan, and 2, to adopt the general ordinance. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, now we 2 separate motions.
Like it's all together.
Yeah,
It appeared.
Or is that one motion?
I did one motion. Yes, excuse me.
Okay, there's 2 motions in here.
Yeah, but they're included in the same, it looks like.
Okay. Any other comments before we go to that? Anybody? Okay.
I'll move to adopt general ordinance number 20-1382, amending policy 10 of goal 8, recreational needs of the Dalles Comprehensive Land Use Plan, and acknowledging the Northern Wasco County Parks and Recreation District's Park and Recreation Master Plan as a background document in volume 3 of the Dalles Comprehensive Plan to serve as the city long-range recreation plan for the Dalles urban growth boundary area.
By title only. You didn't do that.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, yeah, we have to do by, I'm going to ask the city clerk to read this by title only.
Thank you.
General Ordinance number 20-1382, amending policy number 10 of goal number 8, recreational needs of the Dalles Comprehensive Land Use Plan, and acknowledging the Northern Wasco County Parks and Recreation District's Parks and Recreation Master Plan as a background document in Volume 3 of the Dalles Comprehensive Plan to serve as the city's long-range recreation plan for the Dalles urban growth boundary area.
I move by title only.
I don't have to ask if there's any objections. Okay, it's been moved to adopt the ordinance.
It hasn't been seconded yet.
I know.
Oh, okay.
I'm looking at you. I'm looking at anybody.
I'll second.
It's been moved by Councilor McLaughlin and seconded by Councilor Miller to adopt the ordinance. Is there any more discussion?
No.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 It's been passed unanimously. Thank you all very much. And thank you, Scott, for attending our meeting and giving the presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, item 11A is approval of a sanitary sewer lining contract 20-005. I trust that'll be Mr. Anderson.
I will. Thank you very much, Honorable Mayor, members of council. The item before you is the award of our annual sanitary sewer slip line project. This is a technique, a methodology that's proved to be very cost effective for the city to rehabilitate existing sewer lines without having to dig them up. As indicated in the staff report, the city has over 60 miles of old sewer lines that are failing or near the end of their life. And so this has been a very effective way for the city to get a handle on that. This year's project anticipates rehabilitating about 6,600 feet of sanitary sewer main. The project was advertised for bid. The city received 3 responsive bids. The low bid was from In Situ Foam Technologies in the amount of $317,000, excuse me, $317,425.20. We actually have a total of $400,000 budgeted in Fund 56 for the project. And it's staff's recommendation that the city council move to authorize the city manager to enter into contract with In Situ Foam Technologies for the 2020 sanitary sewer CIPP lining contract number 2020-005 in an amount not to exceed $317,425.20.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Anderson?
I just have a comment.
Yes,
I like the pictures to see what they look like before and then the after.
Anybody else?
Could you see if you could get them to drop the 20 cents?
I'm not sure we can revisit a bid.
Dave, I'm just confused about the second paragraph, the last 2 sentences about the goal is to do 15% per year. Then you say 90% has been video inspected. But then the last sentence says nearly all needs to be rehabbed or replaced. Is the 15% is, how much do we have left of the total?
So the 15% is our annual goal to inspect each year. So that puts us basically on about a 7-year inspection cycle for the system. We have been through about 90% of the system thus far. And so we'll be starting over again pretty soon and re-inspecting older pipes within the next few years. My estimate, I wish I had brought this, but I kind of anticipated the question here just before the meeting. We've been doing this for trying to do between $400,000, $500,000 a year for around 10 years. We haven't hit every single year, but we've done a lot. And we have probably done in the neighborhood of 10 miles of pipe so far. And those footages that are listed in the report, we have probably about 62 miles of clay and concrete pipe, and those are the materials that fail most often. So we're making progress.
Thank you. Councilor Miller.
How long, once a pipe is lined, how long does the lining last?
Well, the lining is essentially a PVC pipe. So we would expect it to have a 50-year plus life cycle. Now, there's some caveats to that. And the caveats are that we're putting this in the old pipe. So it's still somewhat subject to the failures that might be associated with the way the pipe was originally installed. Old construction techniques, they didn't always provide the proper compaction. They didn't provide the what we would consider proper backfill these days. They might be subject to some subtle land movements, and that could things like that might be compromise the 50 years. But it's a pretty good life out of these, because like they say, basically we are laying a new PVC pipe inside an old tube.
Right.
Any other questions or comments? Looking for a motion.
I move to authorize the city manager to enter into contract with In Situ Form for the 2020 sanitary sewer SIP lining, contract number 2020-005, in an amount not to exceed $317,425.20.
And 20 cents. Okay. Any other?
McLaughlin will second that.
It's been moved by Councilor Randall and seconded by Councilor McLaughlin to authorize the city manager to enter into the contract with In Situ Form. Is there any other discussion? All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Item 12A, approval of the police sergeant position. Is the city manager giving this or the police chief?
We are going to do this together. I thought I would just hit the highlights of the recommendation in our staff report, and Chief Ashmore is going to give you more of the background. As you know, we've been working on the codes enforcement program and trying to make it more robust for quite some time, and we have finally completed that. And part of that is to move the position over to work in the police department. So that's one piece that's within the city manager's authority, but we also did some salary comparisons and found that the salary range that the person is currently in is really low. And so we're proposing to change the salary range, and that will give that person some opportunity to grow in their salary again as well. And then also, you may recall during the budget process, one of the things we had eliminated in the police department budget was that extra officer. And so in talking with the chief, and I know he'll go over this as well, our recommendation, we think that will be the most effective, is to have a sergeant position that would help with a lot of other administrative things, but in addition to that, would supervise the codes enforcement program. So that's what this is all about tonight. And then for budget implications, it would be a half the year. So the budget adjustment would be about $60,000, which I believe is in the budget resolution that's coming up on the next on the agenda. And our recommendation, when Chief Ashmore finishes his presentation, is to authorize the sergeant position effective January 1st, 2021, and to move the codes enforcement position salary from AA to W, also effective January 1st. And then I will turn it over to Chief Ashmore, and then we'll be happy to take questions.
Good evening. Thank you for having us, Honorable Mayor and council persons. So kind of a strategy shift. I know I've spoke to all of you in the past in regards to our needs, personnel needs, our calls of services. They continue to go up. They increased from 2017 to 2019, 15% in patrol and 14% in criminal calls. So the work on the street is still heavy and it's not getting any easier. But with the reforms that we're seeing nationally, with the additional code enforcement, it's very important that we have an infrastructure that we can support the good work we're doing. This last year, some unintended consequences in regards to our body-worn cameras, which has saved the city tremendous amounts of money just based on the complaints that we receive, and we're able to review a video and put the complaints to bed before they take on any life. Very, very good investment. But with that, there's a tremendous amount of work that we anticipated an increase of our administrative work, but all those videos need to be redacted. We have a remedy. We have purchased some software that's going to help us do that, but we've been doing that ourselves to save money. So 2 months ago, we spent 60 hours, just the captain and myself, redacting videos, trying to make sure the videos are appropriately released to the public. So a lot of administrative duties that are being added with the code enforcement officer. We believe we have a really good plan moving forward, but it's going to require more supervision. Supervision is going to continue on the street with our officers. The nice thing about a sergeant that's an administrative role, he can also, or she can also oversee our discipline process, our training, coordinating. Very important. Those are things that, you know, if you don't keep track of that, especially again with the reforms we're looking at, can really bite us in the butt. So I think that there's going to be plenty of work. In fact, we're having to cut the list short because we have so much, but we will continue to, you know, provide the services on the street. I'm confident in that. And I also know that if we have a shortage on the service side, we can take that sergeant and put him or her out on the street. So we're looking forward to, hopefully with an approval of this budget, add an officer at the other end. So we will still have increased our officer numbers by 1 this year, which is a great advantage, and we do appreciate that. So I'm just going to summarize it with that. And if you have any questions, please ask.
Does anybody have any questions for the chief or the city manager?
I met with the chief this last week by phone and went over all these same topics. I'm well satisfied.
Anybody else? Oh, I'm sorry, Councilor Lon Curtis.
No, that's okay. So I had some questions about, or maybe I just say I have concerns of how the public might interpret this move of codes to the police department, because it was originally in with the city attorney, and then it moved to planning, and now it's at the police department. And so I'm wondering about that, like how does the public react when you've got someone who is now, you know, coming to them as a part of the police department? And does that add any added risk to your codes enforcement officer?
Julie, I'll try to answer the question on risk, and you can follow up. So yes, to answer your question, I believe that there's always risk when you're enforcing anything. And so, but it's my belief that there was a risk already. And so what we've implemented and what we're going to implement is the code enforcement officer is going to be carrying a radio, going to have an MDT, going to get some de-escalation training from us. We're going to always know where she is on calls. So she's going to be actually dispatched to kind of mitigate the risk piece of it. I don't disagree. I think that people may, I think in the beginning, wonder, you know, if we're coming on stronger, if there's going to be a change in service. And what I'm hoping and my goals are going to be that we are going to be a lot more proactive. I'm not saying that we weren't before, but I think it's going to be obvious that we're going to be out more educating people and trying. We have a lot to learn. I can't sit here tonight and tell you I know anything about code enforcement. We've got a steep curve on our end of it, but I think we have the potential to really, really make it a robust program. And I think that with the training and the things that we hope to identify that are needed to make it what it needs to be. I think I've heard a lot of, I'll be honest, I've heard a lot of negative things, but after I've met with the current code enforcement officer, I'm very confident that we're going to move this forward and it's going to be a positive. I think the people, the citizens of the Dalles are going to be pleased because I think they're going to see a lot more structure, and I think that's going to equate into better service.
Thank you, Chief. And I actually echo his comments. I think that the most important benefit of all this is the structure. And my conversations with the codes enforcement officer, I think she's very excited for this move. I think she feels like she will get the structure and the support and supervision that she needs to be very successful in her job.
And I was also just thinking about the public and how do we roll this out to them so it doesn't become the rumor mill and that we lose control of explaining why we're doing it. So maybe we want to be a little proactive on the public relations portion.
Thank you. That's a good comment. We will work on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? I just want to add, I went through this thoroughly, and to me, there's 6 really good reasons why we should approve this. The increase in calls, the increase in criminal calls and calls for service, covering shifts to meet coverage minimums, the aforementioned video review and redaction from the cameras, the code enforcement issue, and also it keeps the other 2 sergeants and detectives in patrol supervising what they should be doing instead of filling in for other duties. So with that, do I hear a motion?
Is this one you read, Izetta, or do I go ahead and read it? Okay. I'd like to make a motion to approve staff recommendation 1, move to authorize an administrative sergeant position to the police department effective January 1, 2021, and move the codes enforcement position from salary schedule AA to W effective January 1, 2021.
I'll second.
It's been moved by Councilor Runyon and seconded by Councilor Miller to authorize the additional sergeant position. Is there any more discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Raise your hand. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much, Chief. Item 12B is a resolution authorizing the transfer of funds. And I know that our finance director is going to be addressing this issue, and I believe our city manager is also going to be addressing a particular issue in regards to this resolution. Which one is going first?
Our finance director will provide the staff report.
Okay.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and members of council. You have before you my agenda staff report for resolution number 20-21, authorizing transfers of budget amounts between categories of the general fund of the City of the Dalles adopted budget, making appropriations and authorizing expenditures for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2021. The resolution number 20-2021 transfers $124,025 from the contingency line item to cover the following items. $2,400 is needed from the general fund contingency to compensate the judicial department for the contract with Wasco County. This contract is to provide the functions associated with the misdemeanor criminal cases in the municipal court. In the contract, it states that we will increase the contract by 3% each year during the renewal term. And this was inadvertently left out of the budget. $2,900 is needed from the general fund contingency to add a body-worn camera and additional storage for the codes department. $10,084 is needed from the general fund contingency to compensate the police department. This will cover $2,584 for the EIS computer aided dispatch that was inadvertently left out of the budget. $3,000 for the additional clothing costs that will be needed for the new police officer. And the police department has budgeted to replace an all-wheel drive Dodge Charger this year. The Dodge is no longer making the all-wheel drive Charger in the V8 platform, which enables us to maintain the same vehicle platform. The alternative is to purchase a Ford Explorer. This will increase the cost of the purchase by $4,500 that is currently not in the budget. Oops, sorry. And $60,205 is needed for the police department to add the additional police officer position that is included in the department report that was just spoke about. And $48,436 is needed for the Human Resource Department to add a temporary part-time salary for the tutors. Due to COVID-19, the city manager would like to authorize this service to help families with school services at the library, which I believe that Julie will talk about that next. Julie?
Thank you, Angie. So I just wanted to go over, I know there were some questions raised about the tutoring program, and I know that you're all somewhat familiar with it. So I just wanted to give you a brief overview, mostly for the public, to make sure that everyone understands what the program is. So this is a program for any city employee where both parents are working, or it's a single parent family and they have school children between kindergarten and 6th grade, so that those employees can still continue to come to work and be productive employees, and their children have the opportunity to be somewhere where they can have some help with their schoolwork since they can't go to school. We consider this a temporary program, and of course we're waiting to hear, you know, when District 21 will be able to reopen schools, or if they will, or what it will look like. I know that they're planning to relook at that situation mid-October, but of course we have no way of knowing what that might look like at this time. There was a question, well, before I move on from that, our leadership team worked very hard on this program to do something that we could positively impact our employees and keep them productive and working. But particularly the Human Resources Director worked very hard with the safety officer to make sure that this was a very safe environment. So the children go into the children's library room entrance from the outside, and they're the only ones in that room with the tutor. They have the CDC requirements for distancing. They have to have their temperature taken before they can go in the building. They have to sanitize going into the building. It's cleaned all the time. And the library employees, while I understand there was some mention in the minutes from one of their board meetings that employees were concerned, they have no contact with those children. They're out in the main portion of the library, away from the children. And as you know, the library, it continues to remain closed with drop-offs to the box and then curbside delivery of materials that people want to check out. So the employees are very safe, as well as the students are very safe. Let's see, I wanted to address a couple other things. I think I did cover that pretty well. Daniel might jump in if I forgot something vital there. And then the question of the budget resolution and the $48,000, we have, Angie, you might want to jump in and correct me too if I misstate this, but the purpose of doing that, even though within that department of the budget, we know we will have savings because our safety officer, when he was full-time assigned to the Emergency Operations Center, that was money that can be reimbursed to the city from our COVID grant. But when that money comes in, it comes into the general fund, not particularly to that department. And then by doing this budget resolution, it shows that the money would be spent from the Human Resources Department budget, but that amount is for 1 year. And of course, we don't anticipate that we're going to be doing this for 1 year. My hope is we'll do it for a couple of months and school will become back in session. So as a reference, last month we had 2 tutors working, and the total cost for September was just under $1,900. Since that time, starting last week, we have gone down to only needing 1 tutor. And so the cost would be even less per month. So while we have budgeted for the whole year, we certainly don't expect that we're going to use the entire $48,000. Whatever funds of that are not spent will roll back into the ending fund balance. Did I explain that correctly, Angie? I didn't say anything
Yes,
out loud. Okay.
No, that was great.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I didn't misstate any of that. Does that answer all your questions, or does anyone have any other questions about that program?
I'd like to restrict at this point just questions of the staff, and then we'll see if there's any public that want to weigh in, and then we'll get back to comments from the City Council. So at this point, does the City Council have any questions of the staff?
Just one quick one. Was this an original idea, or had you seen this elsewhere in the state?
No, Councilor Runyon, this was actually something I had been thinking about, and a couple other people on the leadership team also raised the question. And so we put all of our heads together and developed our own program.
Councilor Long Curtis.
So the issue had been raised to me that I hadn't thought of, which is about if this becomes a taxable benefit to our employees, or if there's some kind of human resources rule that we might be running afoul of, because I understand that Wasco County considered it and then discarded the idea.
They did inquire about our program. I don't know what their decision has been, or what if they made one, why that was. They haven't gotten back to us.
Is it it's a benefit to some people, right? So human resource director, does this have to be reported?
We can look into that. I don't know that it would be a taxable benefit, but we can certainly look into that.
Yeah, I don't off the top of my head know that it is. And part of that is just because of the circumstances we're in. And because basically the services going to be provided for in the end by COVID-19 recovery funds or through the grant. So I'm going to have to look into that to see whether or not it is and just what we're doing.
Okay, so you'll get something in writing back to the City Council on that?
Yes.
I can do that.
Thank you. Any other questions? I want to just summarize. I sent Julie a question today on this issue. And just so I understand it, if we spent $1,873 for two tutors for 3 weeks, the way I figure it, it would mean $624 per week, or $312 for one tutor per week, or approximately $1,352 for the month of October. And Julie wrote back, and I assume that I figured that correctly, Julie?
Yes, that is correct, Mayor.
Okay, so we're really, when you see the number 48,000, you're thinking $4,000 a month. In fact, it's because of the issues and because of what Julie just said in her report. It's really closer to $1,352 per month. I'm not sure that makes any difference or whether it addresses some of the other issues, but I just thought it was important we point that out. Any other questions for the staff? Is there anybody in the public that would like to address the City Council on this issue? Okay, I'm opening up for comments from the council. Any comments?
I had a lot of questions, as I think we all did at the beginning, but had a conversation with our city manager today. Well pleased that the possibility of return of funds through COVID grants and whatnot is part of the whole idea here. It is hard in private companies and in the city to hold and retain and train employees. And this is something that is all new ground with the COVID-19 crisis that we're in the middle of. And it's a bold idea. There is that for sure. But at the same time, the cost of retraining, if we have to hire a new employee, just even one, over a period of time could far outweigh this cost. So the cost benefit to me, I'm good with it now. I had questions earlier in the week, but I think we're on the right track, and looking at grant funding is very important. And I think our city manager is on top of that aspect.
And I second those comments. The funding source was a concern, and now with knowing that it's COVID-19 part of it, and so I'm okay with it as well.
Any other comments?
Julie?
Julie. Councilor Long Curtis?
Angie can go first, it's fine.
I think I know what
I want to reinstate that this is not going to be funded by COVID grant. This will be coming out of our contingency fund. I think what Julie was trying to tell you earlier is that we do have our safety officer, that his expenses for salary, personnel services will be covered by the COVID grant, which is out of the same department. So the funding, we will be getting I will be doing a budget supplement at the, in the future, near future, and we'll be receiving revenue in that area for the safety officer, but we are not getting this covered by the COVID grant.
Not the current grant, but we don't know. Every time they change it, there's a new iteration. And I think since we've elevated the question to them, it might be something that they will consider in the future as something that might be eligible. We don't know that. But right now we know it's not because we checked.
Right. But it could be possible for the future.
It could be, or there could be other opportunities.
Right. Councilor Long Curtis?
Yeah, so what we haven't discussed here tonight is basically all the backlash that was on social media. I think people are really upset about feeling like it's not fair that we're using tax dollars to do this. And so, you know, I'm just wondering, does that give anybody pause? I mean, my sister has the same thing. She's a single working mom, but she doesn't have any help where she's at. And so I get why people are upset.
Councilor Miller.
I've had one negative comment about this. I've had several positive comments about it.
In addition to the emails that we got?
Yes.
You say emails. Did we get more than one?
I only got one.
That's the one I got.
Councilor Long Curtis, did you say?
I did.
I want to make sure I understand. Did you get more than one email?
Yeah, I had more than one contact.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay. I guess, Julie, let me just ask you one other question. In light of the cost to the city, albeit being taxpayer money, do you feel like the resolution has to include the full $48,000?
I believe that's appropriate according to budget law, but our finance director might be able to answer that better than myself.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like if you don't want to authorize 48,000, you guys could authorize a different amount and you could approve that, and I can amend the budget resolution and have it to reduce the contingency.
Well, just thinking out loud, what was that? Just thinking out loud, I was wondering if in fact it is $1,350 a month, 3 months would bring a little more than $4,000, which you know, I'm just asking if we could lower the 48,000 to an amount that is more acceptable. That's all.
You could do that. I guess I would just say, I think that it is reasonable based upon the information that we provided you tonight, that we're not going to spend the money that we don't use and it will roll back into your ending fund balance for the next budget cycle. It just covers the unknown because we haven't, just like everything else this year, we just don't know if we're going to need this for 3 months or 3 weeks or 6 months. So I guess we could always come back and ask for additional funds if something like that happened, if you were not comfortable with the amount. It's not like the money's gonna go away. It's still gonna be in the general fund what we don't use.
Right. Okay, any other comments or questions?
I would like to see Councilor Runyon. I'd like to see some sort of review, maybe by our first meeting in November, to see where we are at. And I think our city manager should have some more information from the school district by that time. She's in contact with them. This is new ground again. We are in a strange and odd place, but I think we need to have some kind of review as we go along.
I agree. I agree with that comment.
Thank you. I've just added that to my task list.
Yeah. Okay, so you're all asking for a report at the first meeting in November?
First meeting in November.
Okay. At this point, if somebody would like to make a motion, or if we get a second, we'll vote.
I move to adopt resolution number 20-021, authorizing transfers of funds between departments of the general fund of the City of the Dalles budget, making appropriations and authorizing expenditures for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2021.
I second.
It's been moved by Councilor Miller and seconded by Councilor Randall to approve the resolution. Is there any more discussion?
Yeah.
Councilor Long Curtis.
Yep. So this is a lump sum, and I agree with everything except the tutoring. Now that it's been brought to my attention, that people don't feel it's fair, and I did originally think it was a good benefit for our employees to keep them on, but I understand from the public's point of view, and I understand that city employees make quite a bit more money than most people who are struggling with this. So I have a problem with that, but I am going to vote yes because I want to support the rest of the police department portion of the budget.
Thank you. Any more discussion? Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 It's been passed unanimously. Thank you very much. And finally, we get to item 12C, an authorization to execute the CDBG application and contracts for the Mid-Columbia Regional Home Repair Program. Looking for a staff report.
That will be from Alice Cannon.
Ms. Cannon, you have the floor.
Good evening, Mayor and members of council. This item is coming before you as a correction. At your May 11th meeting, you authorized and voted to authorize the city to execute community development block grant applications and contracts between the city and the Oregon Department of Housing and Community Services, together with the Columbia Cascade Housing Corporation in support of a regional home repair program. This is a great program offered by that nonprofit. The only correction we need to make in anticipation of
Alice, you just froze.
We'll wait just a second and see if there she is.
There she goes.
Are
you with us again?
Need me to, I will call. I'm going to call you.
No, we can hear you now.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I'm
just
sorry about
pick it
that.
Up. Yeah, it's okay. You were just talking about what a great program it was.
Yeah, it is a great program. This is only correcting an error. You took the appropriate action on May 11th. We just need to make a quick correction that would identify that the CDBG application is with Business Oregon instead of the Oregon Department of Housing and Community Services. So with that, it is staff's recommendation that you move to authorize the city manager to execute the CDBG application and contracts between the City of the Dalles and Business Oregon, and between the City of the Dalles and Columbia Cascade Housing Corporation for the Mid-Columbia Regional Home Repair Program.
Thank you. Is there any questions or comments? Do I hear a motion?
I'll make the motion to what she said.
Okay.
Can we get an actual motion?
Move to authorize the city manager to execute CDBG application and contracts between the City of the Dalles and Business Oregon and between the City of the Dalles and Columbia Cascade Housing Corporation for a Mid-Columbia Regional Home Repair Program.
McLaughlin will second.
It's been moved by Councilor Runyon and seconded by Councilor McLaughlin to approve the motion and approve the agreement. Is there any more discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Is there any other business to come before the City Council? With that, just before I adjourn, Alice, could I talk to you about this item? You sent me an email earlier. If you could follow up with me, I'd appreciate it. And
yes.
This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Okay.